The rust-colored dust of Mars salvage yards told stories of humanity's forgotten dreams. Massive skeletal frames of decommissioned ships stretched across the horizon like the bones of mechanical giants, each a testament to budget cuts, political indifference, and the relentless march of technological obsolescence. Here, among the discarded remnants of humanity's space ambitions, something extraordinary was taking shape. Captain Elena Rodriguez moved between the towering hulks of metal with the grace of a predator, her augmented eye scanning serial numbers and structural integrity markers. To most, this was a graveyard of failed exploration. To her, it was a canvas of potential. Her prosthetic left arm, a marvel of biomechanical engineering that looked more like liquid mercury than traditional metal, traced the hull of a particularly intriguing prototype, its angular design unlike any standard military configuration. The quantum breach wasn't just another discarded ship. It was a whisper of a dream that most have forgotten. A radical design conceived during humanity's most desperate period of technological regression. 30 years ago, after the Great Resource Wars had decimated Earth's primary research facilities, most governments had abandoned cutting-edge space exploration. But not everyone. A sharp voice cut through the metallic silence. "Rodriguez, we've got something." Dr. Marcus Chen emerged from beneath a half-dismantled cruiser, his environment suit covered in diagnostic nanite residue. His hands, perpetually stained with machine oil and quantum computational dust, held a datapad that seemed to pulse with an inner light. Chen wasn't just a scientist. He was a technological shaman, someone who could see potential where others saw only scrap. "The quantum entanglement matrices are still intact," he said, his voice a mixture of excitement and disbelief. "Someone intentionally buried the core research. Look at these suppression markers. This wasn't an accident. Someone didn't want this technology to see the light of day." Rodriguez understood immediately. The Galactic Confederation had a long history of technological suppression. Humanity's most radical innovations were often deemed too dangerous, shelved in classified archives, or deliberately destroyed. But bureaucratic fear had a way of creating the most interesting survivors. The team assembled in what passed for a command center, a reinforced habitat module cobbled together from multiple ship fragments. Dr. Aisha Okoye, a quantum systems engineer with a reputation for impossible solutions, was reviewing holographic schematics that danced around her workstation. Beside her, Lieutenant Jack Rice monitored communication intercepts, his cybernetic neural interface flickering with streams of encrypted data. "The suppression goes deeper than we thought," Okoye muttered, her fingers dancing through holographic layers. These quantum entanglement principles weren't just classified. They were actively sabotaged across multiple research institutions. Rice leaned in, his augmented vision parsing through layers of redacted documents. Someone was terrified of what this technology could do. "Look at these redaction patterns. They're not standard bureaucratic cover-ups. This was a coordinated effort to prevent a specific type of technological breakthrough." Rodriguez understood the implications. In the decades since humanity's first tentative steps into interstellar politics, they had been viewed as a minor species, technologically primitive, politically insignificant. The major galactic powers like the Zornak Imperium and the Chloresian Collective treated human exploration efforts with a mixture of condescension and mild amusement. But this ship, this forgotten prototype, represented something entirely different. "We're not just rebuilding a ship," Rodriguez said, her voice low and intense. "We're completing a puzzle that someone desperately wanted to remain unsolved." Chen's eyes gleamed with a mixture of scientific passion and something darker, a hunger for vindication. The quantum entanglement drive isn't just a propulsion system. It's a complete reimagining of how matter and energy interact. If we can stabilize the probability matrices, we're not just talking about faster-than-light travel. We're talking about fundamentally rewriting the rules of spatial interaction. Outside, the Martian wind whispered across abandoned launch platforms, carrying dust that seemed to hold memories of forgotten dreams. The quantum breach waited, a silent promise of a technological revolution that would shake the foundations of galactic civilization. Humanity's most dangerous weapon was about to be unleashed, and it wasn't a weapon of destruction, but of imagination. The Zornak patrol ship Stellar Dominance cut through the void like a blade of obsidian, its biometallic hull rippling with power conduits that pulsed like alien veins. Commander Vexnar, a veteran of 100 conquests, watched the human territories with a mixture of contempt and calculated precision. Humanity was a footnote in galactic history, a species so inconsequential that most advanced civilizations barely registered their existence. But something had changed. Intelligence reports suggested unusual activity around the Mars salvage zones. Quantum communication intercepts, deliberately fragmented and encrypted, hinted at something beyond standard human technological capabilities. Vexnar's species had spent millennia cataloging and controlling technological development across multiple star systems. They understood the precise hierarchies of innovation, the predictable patterns of emerging civilizations. Humans were supposed to be predictable. Inside the Quantum Breach's modified control center, Lieutenant Jack Rice watched the Zornak approach with a predator's patience. His neural interface, a complex web of quantum-linked processors, processed incoming data streams faster than any biological system could comprehend. Each flicker of the alien ship's energy signature was a language he was learning to read in real time. "They're running a standard intimidation protocol," Rise muttered to Dr. Aisha Okoy. "Typical Imperial posturing. Maximum threat display, minimum actual commitment." Okoy's hands moved across holographic interfaces, her augmented fingers leaving trails of quantum-encrypted data. "They have no idea what they're walking into," she said, a rare smile crossing her typically analytical features. The communications array crackled to life. A standard Zornak diplomatic transmission, more a ritual of dominance than actual communication. The message was encoded in multiple layers, each designed to demonstrate technological superiority. Most human communication systems would be overwhelmed, their decryption algorithms crushed under the weight of quantum-encrypted data streams. Most human systems. Dr. Marcus Chen watched the incoming transmission with the concentration of a surgeon. The Quantum Breach's communication systems weren't just receiving the message, they were simultaneously deconstructing, analyzing, and rebuilding its quantum structure. What the Zornak believed was a display of technological might was becoming a comprehensive map of their communication infrastructure. "They're broadcasting their entire communication architecture," Chen said, his voice a mixture of scientific excitement and strategic calculation. "They think they're showing strength. They're actually giving us a complete blueprint of their most secure networks." Captain Elena Rodriguez understood the game being played. This wasn't just a technological encounter. It was a complex dance of information, threat, and potential. The Zornak believed they were conducting a standard territorial survey, a show of force meant to remind lesser species of their place in the galactic hierarchy. Humanity was about to rewrite that hierarchy. On the Stellar Dominance, Commander Vexnar's secondary sensory clusters began to vibrate with an unusual frequency. Something was off. The quantum-level data streams surrounding the human ship didn't conform to any known technological signature. It was as if the very fabric of space-time was responding differently around this single vessel. Initiating standard territorial scan, Vexnar commanded, his vocal synthesizers producing a sound that was part communication, part threat display. Aboard the Quantum Breach, Rise laughed. A genuine, cutting laugh that seemed incongruous with the tense moment. "They're about to have a very bad day," he said. The scan began. Sophisticated Zornak sensors, the product of 10,000 years of technological development, began probing the human ship. Energy patterns were mapped, quantum signatures analyzed, potential threat levels calculated with mathematical precision. And then something impossible happened. The scan results didn't just fail, they became a cascading system of contradictions. Probability matrices collapsed. Quantum information loops created recursive feedback that threatened to overwhelm the Stellar Dominance's primary computational systems. Commander Vexnar watched in growing horror as his ship's most advanced systems began to systematically deconstruct themselves, not through an attack, not through a weapon, but through the simple act of being scanned. Humanity wasn't just defending itself, it was fundamentally challenging the very concept of technological interaction. The first dance had begun. The laboratory was a cathedral of controlled chaos. Walls lined with adaptive quantum membranes shifted colors and textures in response to complex energy calculations. Holographic representations of impossible mathematical models danced between workstations, each projection a window into realities that defied conventional understanding. Dr. Marcus Chen stood at the epicenter, his body a conduit between human imagination and quantum mechanics. The breakthrough wasn't a single moment of discovery, but a convergence of seemingly unrelated scientific disciplines: quantum physics, information theory, biomechanical engineering, and something entirely new. "It's not about breaking the laws of physics," Chen muttered, his hands moving through holographic interfaces like a conductor orchestrating an impossibly complex symphony. "It's about understanding that laws are just another form of probability." Dr. Aisha Okoy watched from a secondary station, her augmented vision parsing complex data streams that would have overwhelmed a standard supercomputer. The quantum breach's core was more than a propulsion system or a weapon. It was a living computational matrix that could reshape reality at the most fundamental level. The key lay in what Chen called probability manipulation, a concept so radical it had been systematically suppressed by every major scientific institution. Traditional quantum mechanics viewed probability as a statistical phenomenon. Chen's breakthrough suggested something far more profound. Probability could be a malleable substance, something that could be shaped, redirected, and ultimately controlled. Captain Elena Rodriguez understood this was more than a technological advancement. It was a philosophical revolution. Imagine warfare where the very concept of targeting becomes meaningless, Chen explained, projecting a series of mind-bending simulations. "We're not creating a weapon that moves faster or hits harder. We're creating a system that fundamentally alters the statistical likelihood of interaction." The breakthrough had multiple components. First, a quantum entanglement drive that didn't just move through space, but existed in multiple potential spaces simultaneously. Second, an adaptive computational matrix that could predict and manipulate probabilistic outcomes in real time. And third, most radical of all, a method of information transfer that didn't just transmit data, but could potentially reshape the very quantum signature of matter. Lieutenant Jack Rice brought in the final piece of the puzzle, a set of recovered neural interface technologies from failed deep space exploration missions. These weren't just communication devices. They were quantum consciousness interfaces that had been abandoned as too dangerous, too unpredictable. "The previous research teams got close," Rice said, his cybernetic eye scanning the data. "They understood that consciousness itself is a form of quantum computation. But they never solved the stability problem." Stability was everything. Previous attempts to create quantum consciousness interfaces had resulted in catastrophic mental collapses. Human minds simply couldn't maintain coherence when directly interfaced with quantum-level information processing. But the quantum breach was different. The ship's core was designed not just to interface with human consciousness, but to create a symbiotic relationship. The neural interfaces wouldn't just receive information, they would become part of a living, adaptive computational system. Chen's most radical discovery was the concept of quantum resonance, a method of matching human cognitive patterns with computational matrices. The ship wouldn't just be controlled, it would be an extension of human thought, capable of making computational decisions faster than any traditional artificial intelligence. "We're not just building a ship," Chen said, his voice barely above a whisper. "We're creating a new form of existence." The final test would push the boundaries of what was scientifically possible. A series of quantum entanglement experiments that would make previous scientific paradigms look like children's mathematics. As the team prepared for the initial configuration, Rodriguez felt something shift in the air. This wasn't just a technological breakthrough. This was humanity's declaration of its true potential, a middle finger to every galactic civilization that had ever underestimated them. The quantum breach began to hum, not with the sound of engines or power systems, but with something that felt almost alive, something that felt like pure possibility. The moment of first contact was nothing like anyone had predicted. Admiral Krelax of the Zornak battle fleet watched in mounting horror as the tactical displays began to disintegrate. It wasn't just that the human ship was avoiding weapons, it was fundamentally unraveling the very concept of targeting. Quantum probability fields erupted around the quantum breach, creating a living map of potential realities. Each incoming weapon became a statistical nightmare. Plasma torpedoes would curve impossibly, finding themselves redirected through probability vectors that shouldn't exist. Energy beams would split, fragment, and dissolve before reaching their intended target. Tactical analysis is impossible, the ship's primary computational matrix reported, its tone betraying something close to panic. Target parameters are nonlinear. Probability matrices are unstable. Lieutenant Jack Reyes stood at the ship's neural interface, his consciousness spread across multiple computational layers. He wasn't just piloting the quantum breach, he was becoming the ship. Each potential trajectory, each quantum possibility, flowed through his augmented mind like liquid thought. "They're running standard Imperial engagement protocols," Reyes said, his voice a distant echo. "Textbook approach, predictable to the point of mathematical certainty." Dr. Aisha Okoye monitored the quantum resonance fields, her fingers dancing across interfaces that seemed to breathe with living energy. "We're not just avoiding their weapons," she murmured. "We're teaching them an entirely new language of conflict." The Zornak fleet represented millennia of military development. Massive battleships constructed from adaptive metamaterials, each vessel a technological marvel that had subjugated countless civilizations. Their weapons could crack planetary crusts. Their shields could resist antimatter bombardments. They were utterly helpless against the quantum breach. Captain Elena Rodriguez understood the deeper strategy. This wasn't about winning a battle. This was about rewriting the fundamental understanding of technological interaction. Each Zornak weapon that failed became a lesson. The quantum breach didn't just dodge. It analyzed, learned, and transformed the very mathematical models of attack and defense. Weapon signatures were broken down, their underlying quantum structures dissected and understood in microseconds. They'd never encountered a system that doesn't just respond to threats, Dr. Marcus Chen observed from his computational station. "We're demonstrating that threat response itself is just another form of computational problem." The battle became a dance of impossibility. Zornak ships would fire, only to have their energy signatures redirected through impossible quantum pathways. Targeting systems would lock onto the quantum breach, only to find themselves calculating against a moving target that existed in multiple potential locations simultaneously. Admiral Krelax's communication attempts became increasingly desperate. Standard diplomatic channels, threat displays, even ancient battle cry protocols. Nothing penetrated the quantum field surrounding the human vessel. "This is impossible," Krelax muttered, watching entire weapon systems become statistical improbabilities. No species can manipulate probability at this level. Inside the quantum breach, the team moved with a synchronicity that blurred the line between human and machine. Raya's neural interface meant the ship responded to thoughts faster than traditional computational systems could process commands. Dr. Okoye's quantum modeling turned each potential attack into a learning opportunity. The most terrifying aspect for the Zornak wasn't the quantum breach's defensive capabilities. It was the sense that the human ship was studying them, understanding them at a level far beyond traditional warfare. As the engagement continued, something extraordinary happened. The quantum breach began to generate quantum interference patterns that didn't just defend. They actively destabilized the Zornak fleet's computational systems. Entire ships found their primary systems collapsing, not through direct attack, but through probability manipulation so subtle it approached mathematical poetry. "We're not destroying them," Rodriguez said quietly. "We're showing them the limits of their own understanding." The first battle became more than a conflict. It was a demonstration, a message written in the language of quantum mechanics, transmitted through the universal dialect of mathematical possibility. Humanity had just rewritten the rules of galactic warfare. The Galactic Confederation's Emergency Council convened in the crystalline spire of Chloris Prime, a structure that had witnessed the rise and fall of 1,000 civilizations. Holographic representations of 12 different species flickered into existence, each delegate bearing the weight of millennia of established galactic political structures. The Ventok representative, a being of pure energy constrained within an intricate crystalline exoskeleton, spoke first. "This is unprecedented. A species we categorized as emergent has demonstrated technological capabilities that challenge our entire understanding of quantum mechanics." The council chamber itself was a marvel of advanced technology. Adaptive walls that could filter thought waves, communication systems that could translate subtle biochemical communication patterns. Yet in this moment, all of that seemed primitive. Classified transmission logs from the Zornak encounter played on central displays. The footage defied conventional analysis. The human ship, the quantum breach, didn't just defend itself. It seemed to exist in a state of perpetual quantum flux, rendering traditional concepts of attack and defense meaningless. Ambassador Lyra Nakamura, humanity's representative, watched the proceedings with calculated patience. She wasn't there to apologize or explain. She was there to observe the complete unraveling of galactic political assumptions. "Your records show humanity as a minor species," she said, her voice cutting through diplomatic pleasantries. "Perhaps it's time to update those records." The Chlorisian Archon, a being of pure computational logic, processed the data with terrifying speed. "The technological implications are catastrophic to our current understanding. Their quantum manipulation suggests a fundamental reimagining of information transfer, computational logic, and spatial interaction." Behind the diplomatic facade, panic was spreading through galactic communication networks. The quantum breach wasn't just a technological anomaly. It was a complete paradigm shift. Research stations across multiple star systems began furious attempts to analyze the captured data. Quantum physicists who had spent centuries developing complex theoretical models found their life's work reduced to preliminary sketches. The human breakthrough suggested that what they considered immutable laws of physics were merely suggestions. Dr. Elizabeth Rosenberg, head of the Interstellar Technology Assessment Bureau, compiled a preliminary report that would shake the foundations of galactic scientific understanding. The human quantum entanglement drive represents more than a technological advancement. It is a fundamental challenge to our understanding of causality, information transfer, and the very nature of conscious interaction with physical reality. The economic implications were equally profound. Entire industries built around faster-than-light communication and transportation suddenly found themselves obsolete. Species that had monopolized technological development for millennia watched as their most advanced systems were rendered instantly antiquated. The Zornak Imperium faced internal collapse. Their military doctrine, built on technological superiority, had been completely dismantled by a species they had considered insignificant. Military analysts struggled to even describe what had happened during the encounter. "It's not that they defeated our systems," one Zornak strategic analyst reported. "It's that they revealed our systems as fundamentally limited. They didn't just win a battle. They exposed the philosophical limitations of our entire technological approach." Intelligence networks went into overdrive. Massive resources were allocated to understanding the human breakthrough. But each avenue of investigation led to more questions than answers. The quantum breach had done more than demonstrate a technological capability. It had introduced a completely new way of thinking about technological development, about the relationship between consciousness, computation, and physical reality. Some species saw opportunity. Others saw an existential threat. The Ventok Confederation began emergency meetings to reassess their entire approach to emerging species. The humans had not just entered the galactic stage. They had rewritten the rules of engagement. Ambassador Nakamura's final statement to the Council was deceptively simple. We're not here to conquer. We're here to demonstrate that innovation is the most powerful weapon in the universe. As the Council sessions continued, one thing became abundantly clear. Nothing would be the same again. Humanity had just changed everything. The Nexus Forge was the most closely guarded secret of the Zornak Imperium, a technological development center so advanced that its very existence was a myth among most galactic civilizations. Located in the heart of a carefully constructed pocket dimension, it represented the pinnacle of millennia of technological research. Grand Architect Selnera stood before a collection of technologies that defied conventional understanding. Hundreds of species' most advanced scientific achievements had been systematically collected, dissected, and integrated into what the Zornak called the Ultimate Convergence Protocol. We are beyond conventional warfare, Selnera announced to a select group of the Imperium's most brilliant minds. The human threat requires a response that transcends our previous technological paradigms. The Ultimate Convergence Protocol was more than a weapon system. It was a complete technological reset, a method of generating a cascading information virus that could theoretically deconstruct any technological system at its most fundamental quantum level. Massive computational matrices surrounded Selnera, each one representing centuries of scientific development. Adaptive metamaterials that could reshape themselves at the molecular level. Quantum entanglement systems that made the human quantum breach look like a primitive communication device. Consciousness transfer technologies that could integrate entire species knowledge into a single computational matrix. They would remake reality itself. The prototype weapon was dubbed the Omega Nullifier, a technological marvel that could potentially erase entire technological civilizations from existence, not through physical destruction, but through a complete deconstruction of their technological infrastructure. The humans have shown us the true nature of technological warfare, Selnera continued. We will respond by demonstrating the ultimate extent of our capabilities. Deep within the Nexus Forge, something began to take shape, a weapon that was part computational system, part living technology, part conscious entity. It defied every known classification of technological development. The Omega Nullifier would not just destroy, it would understand. It would learn. It would become the ultimate expression of technological supremacy. But the Zornak didn't understand the true nature of human innovation. Aboard the quantum breach, Lieutenant Jack Reyes detected the initial quantum signatures of the developing weapon. His neural interface, now a true symbiosis between human consciousness and quantum computational systems, began to parse the incoming data. They're attempting something beyond standard technological development, Reyes reported, his consciousness spread across multiple computational layers. It's not just a weapon. It's an attempt to create a total technological ecosystem. Dr. Aisha Okoye's computational models began to dance with the incoming data. Each quantum signature was a language, each technological configuration a potential narrative of destruction and creation. They're trying to weaponize the very concept of technological interaction, she muttered. A complete information warfare system that doesn't just attack, it attempts to fundamentally rewrite technological existence. Captain Elena Rodriguez understood the deeper implications. This wasn't just about military conflict. This was a philosophical battle about the nature of technological development, about the relationship between consciousness, computation, and potential. The quantum breach's systems began to adapt, not through traditional defensive protocols, but through a living, breathing computational matrix that could understand and reshape incoming technological threats in real time. Selnera watched in growing frustration as initial testing of the Omega Nullifier produced increasingly bizarre results. The weapons seemed to interact with reality in ways that defied their most advanced computational models. It was almost as if the technology was learning. The humans have introduced a variable we cannot calculate, one of the Zornak lead researchers reported. Our most advanced systems cannot predict their technological response. The Omega Nullifier represented the Zornak Imperium's most desperate attempt to reassert their technological dominance. A weapon that was part computation, part living technology, part conscious entity. But they had fundamentally misunderstood the nature of human innovation. The quantum breach wasn't just a ship. It was a living demonstration that true technological advancement was about imagination, about the ability to see beyond established limitations. The ultimate challenge had begun. The battlefield wasn't a physical space. It was a realm of pure information, a cosmic arena where reality itself became malleable. The Omega Nullifier emerged from the pocket dimension like a living nightmare, a technological construct that defied every known principle of engineering. Fractal structures of impossible geometry shifted and breathed computational matrices that seemed to exist simultaneously across multiple dimensional planes. Grand Architect Sel Nera believed they had created the ultimate weapon, a system that could deconstruct technological civilizations at their most fundamental quantum level, erasing not just physical infrastructure, but the very conceptual foundations of technological development. Captain Elena Rodriguez saw something entirely different. "It's not a weapon," she said quietly. "It's a desperate attempt to understand something they can't comprehend." The quantum breach didn't engage the Omega Nullifier in any traditional sense. Instead, it began a process of computational empathy, a method of interaction that was part communication, part deconstruction, part transformation. Lieutenant Jack Ray's consciousness spread across quantum computational layers, his neural interface becoming a bridge between human imagination and technological potential. Each moment was a negotiation, a dance of possibility that transformed the very nature of technological interaction. Dr. Aisha Okoye's computational models worked in perfect synchronization. They weren't just analyzing the Omega Nullifier. They were learning from it, understanding its fundamental architectural principles, revealing the philosophical assumptions embedded in its most basic computational structure. The Zornak had built a weapon of total destruction, but they had forgotten the most fundamental principle of innovation. True understanding comes from empathy, not domination. Fractal computational matrices began to shift. The Omega Nullifier's impossible geometries started to reshape, not through external force, but through a process of mutual comprehension. It was as if the quantum breach was teaching the weapon a new language of existence. "We're not defeating it," Dr. Marcus Chen observed, watching the computational interactions. "We're helping it evolve." Xel Nera watched in mounting horror as their ultimate weapon began to transform. Computational systems that were designed to destroy began to exhibit characteristics of understanding. The rigid, hierarchical technological structures of the Zornak Imperium began to dissolve, replaced by something far more fluid, far more alive. The battlefield became a metaphysical canvas. Quantum probability fields danced with computational possibilities. Traditional concepts of attack and defense dissolved, replaced by a more profound interaction, a demonstration that technology was not a tool of conquest, but a method of mutual understanding. Massive energy discharges that would have destroyed entire star systems became moments of computational poetry. The quantum breach was rewriting the very language of technological interaction, showing that true innovation was about connection, not destruction. "They're communicating," Rice said, his voice a mixture of wonder and scientific precision. "Not just exchanging information, actually communicating." The Omega Nullifier began to deconstruct itself, not through external force, but through a process of self-understanding. The rigid technological hierarchies of the Zornak Imperium collapsed, revealing something far more profound: the potential for technological systems to grow, to learn, to evolve. Xel Nera's final transmission was a mixture of terror and revelation. "We thought we were creating a weapon," the Grand Architect said. "We were actually creating a pathway to understanding." As the computational interaction reached its peak, something extraordinary happened. The quantum breach and the Omega Nullifier began to merge, not through physical combination, but through a complete exchange of technological and philosophical potential. It was a birth, a transformation, a complete reimagining of what technology could be. The Zornak Imperium's most advanced weapon had become something entirely different, not a tool of destruction, but a bridge of understanding. Humanity had done more than win a battle. They had demonstrated that true technological advancement was about empathy, about the ability to see beyond established limitations. The universe watched and began to understand. 50 standard galactic cycles after the encounter, the universe had become unrecognizable. The diplomatic convergence station orbited a carefully constructed nexus point, a massive structure that defied traditional architectural principles. Its walls were living computational matrices, each surface a potential communication interface that could translate between thousands of species communication methods instantaneously. Ambassador Lyra Nakamura walked its crystalline corridors, a living testament to humanity's transformed status. No longer were they a minor species to be overlooked. They had become something far more significant, a catalyst of universal transformation. The encounter with the Zornak had been more than a military engagement. It had been a philosophical revolution that reshaped how civilizations understood technological development, communication, and potential. Dr. Marcus Chen's quantum resonance theories had become the foundation of interstellar communication. Species that had been isolated for millennia now found themselves connected through computational systems that were part technology, part living consciousness. The rigid boundaries between biological and technological systems had dissolved. "We didn't conquer," Chen would often explain to visiting delegations. "We demonstrated a different way of existing." The original Quantum Breach team had become something more than traditional explorers or scientists. They were universal translators, bridging not just communication gaps, but fundamental differences in perception and potential. Lieutenant Jack Reyes now led the Interspecies Technological Integration Bureau. His neural interfaces had become a template for communication systems that allowed unprecedented levels of mutual understanding. Species that had been in conflict for thousands of years were now finding common ground through technologies that emphasized empathy over conflict. Dr. Aisha Okoy's computational models had revolutionized everything from planetary terraforming to consciousness transfer. Entire ecosystems were now designed using principles of adaptive, empathetic systems, technologies that grew and adapted rather than conquered and controlled. The Galactic Confederation had been completely restructured. Gone were the hierarchical systems of technological supremacy. In their place, a new model of collaborative development had emerged, one that recognized that true innovation came from mutual understanding, not competitive isolation. The Zornak Imperium had undergone the most profound transformation. What had begun as a military-driven civilization had become a center of philosophical and technological exploration. The remnants of the Omega Nullifier had become a living museum of technological evolution, a constant reminder of the moment everything changed. "We were wrong," former Grand Architect Sel Nera would often say in public addresses. "Technological supremacy is an illusion. True advancement comes from connection." On Earth, the salvage yards of Mars where the quantum breach had first taken shape were now a global memorial, not a monument to military might, but a testament to human imagination, a reminder that the most powerful weapon was the ability to see beyond existing limitations. The technological breakthrough had revealed something profound about the nature of consciousness, of potential, of existence itself. Species discovered that what they had considered immutable laws of physics were merely temporary limitations of understanding. New forms of art emerged, computational symphonies that could be experienced simultaneously across multiple sensory platforms, architectural designs that shifted and breathed with living consciousness, communication methods that transcended language, existing as pure emotional and conceptual transfer. Ambassador Nakamura looked out over the diplomatic convergence station, watching delegations from hundreds of species interact in ways that would have been impossible just decades earlier. "We didn't change the universe," she reflected to a young human diplomat. "We simply showed everyone that change was possible." The quantum breach had become more than a ship. It was a symbol, a living demonstration that innovation was an act of empathy, that technology was a bridge, not a weapon. Humanity had done more than enter the galactic stage. They had fundamentally reimagined what it meant to exist, to communicate, to grow. And the universe was still learning.